Maya stood in front of the mirror, staring at the reflection of a woman she barely recognized. Her eyes looked tired, not from lack of sleep, but from years of pretending. Pretending to be strong, pretending to be satisfied, pretending to be happy. "I just want to be happy," she whispered to herself. At 28, Maya had everything people admired: a stable job at a marketing firm, a neat apartment in the city, and a fiancé named Daniel, who was handsome, successful, and admired by everyone. On social media, her life looked perfect. Smiling selfies, romantic dinners, office celebrations, every post carefully curated to show a life worth envying. But behind closed doors, Maya felt empty. Every morning she woke up with a heavy feeling in her chest. The alarm rang at 7 a.m., and she would lie there, staring at the ceiling, wondering how her life had turned into something that felt like a script she never agreed to. Daniel wasn't a bad man. He was responsible and ambitious. He had plans for everything: where they would live, how many children they would have, what kind of car they would buy. But in all his plans, there was no room for Maya's dreams. Maya had once loved painting. In college, she would spend hours in the art studio, losing herself in colors and brushstrokes. Her professors believed she had real talent. She dreamed of holding exhibitions, of traveling, of creating art that told stories. But her parents had different dreams for her. "Art won't feed you," her father had said firmly. "You need a real job." And so she chose business over art, security over passion, approval over happiness. Years passed. The paints dried in their tubes. The brushes gathered dust in a box under her bed. One evening, after another long day at work, Maya found herself sitting alone in the living room. Daniel had canceled dinner again because of a meeting. The silence felt louder than any argument. Her phone buzzed. A notification from social media. Someone had commented on an old photo from her college art exhibition. For a moment, she felt like she was 20 again. That night, instead of answering emails or watching television, Maya set up a small space on the dining table. She found a blank canvas she had once bought just in case. She dipped the brush into blue paint and made the first stroke. Tears rolled down her cheeks. It wasn't about the painting. It was about remembering who she used to be. In the following days, Maya began painting in secret. After work, she would rush home, change into old clothes, and lose herself in colors. With each canvas, she felt something inside her waking up. But secrets have a way of coming out. One Saturday afternoon, Daniel came home earlier than expected. He found Maya in the living room, surrounded by paints, her fingers stained red and yellow. "What is all this?" he asked, confused. Maya froze. I started painting again." Daniel frowned. "Why? You don't have time for hobbies right now. The wedding is in 3 months, and you've been distracted lately." "It's not just a hobby," Maya said quietly. He sighed. "Maya, be realistic. You have a good job. We're building a future. Don't throw it away for something impractical." His words felt like a familiar echo from the past. Be realistic. That night, they argued for the first time in years, not about money or schedules, but about dreams. "You're changing," Daniel said sharply. "No," Maya replied, her voice trembling. "I'm finally being myself." The argument left a crack in their relationship that neither of them could ignore. Over the next few weeks, Maya felt torn between two worlds. At work, she forced a smile. With Daniel, she avoided difficult conversations. But in front of her canvas, she felt honest. One day, her colleague Sarah noticed something different. "You look lighter," Sarah said during lunch. Maya hesitated before telling her about the painting. "Why don't you share your work online?" Sarah suggested. "You never know." The idea scared her. What if people laughed? What if no one cared? But that night, she took a photo of her latest painting, a woman standing in the rain, looking up at a small patch of sunlight breaking through dark clouds. She posted it with a simple caption, "I just want to be happy." She turned off her phone and went to bed, her heart racing. The next morning, her phone was flooded with notifications, likes, comments, messages from strangers saying the painting spoke to them. Some shared their own stories of feeling lost, of chasing expectations instead of dreams. One message stood out. "There's a local art fair next month. You should apply. Your work deserves to be seen." Maya's hands shook as she read it. That evening, she told Daniel about the response. "I want to participate in the art fair," she said. Daniel looked at her for a long time. "And if it fails?" Maya took a deep breath. "Then at least I'll know I tried." Silence filled the room. Finally, Daniel spoke softly. "I don't understand this part of you." "That's because I've been hiding it," Maya replied. The truth settled between them. A week later, Maya made the hardest decision of her life. She called off the wedding. It wasn't dramatic. There were no screaming matches, just tears and quiet acceptance. They wanted different futures. The art fair arrived faster than she expected. Maya stood behind her small booth, her paintings displayed for everyone to see. Her heart pounded as people walked by. Some glanced and moved on, but others stopped. They studied her work. They asked questions. They smiled. By the end of the day, she had sold 3 paintings. It wasn't about the money. It was about validation, not from others, but from herself. For the first time in years, Maya felt proud. That night, she walked home alone, the city lights glowing around her. The air felt different, lighter. Her life wasn't perfect. She didn't have all the answers. She had no fiancé, no guaranteed future, no clear plan. But she had something she had been missing for a long time: hope. Maya looked up at the sky and smiled. Happiness, she realized, wasn't a destination or a perfect life displayed on a screen. It was a choice, a risk, a decision to honor who you truly are. She whispered into the night, not with desperation this time, but with quiet certainty. "I just want to be happy." And for the first time, she believed she could be. 6 months after the art fair, Maya's life looked completely different. Not easier, not richer, but real. Her apartment was smaller now. After calling off the wedding, she couldn't afford the place she had once shared with Daniel. She moved into a modest studio on the edge of the city. The walls were plain white, and the kitchen was barely big enough for one person. But the living area had something her old apartment never had: light. A wide window faced the east, and every morning sunlight poured in like a blessing. Maya had placed her easel right in front of it. Her paints were no longer hidden in a dusty box. They were arranged proudly on wooden shelves. She was freelancing now, taking small marketing projects to pay the bills. It wasn't glamorous, and sometimes she worried about money, but for the first time, her schedule belonged to her. Still, happiness wasn't as simple as she had imagined. Some nights, doubt crept in like an uninvited guest. What if this doesn't last? What if you made a mistake? On one particularly quiet evening, Maya scrolled through social media and saw photos of Daniel. He looked happy. Engaged again, perhaps? The comments were full of congratulations. A sharp ache pierced her chest. Had she given up something stable for something uncertain? She turned off her phone and walked to her canvas. The painting in front of her was unfinished. A woman standing at a crossroads, 2 paths stretching into different directions. Maya picked up her brush. "I chose this path," she whispered. "Now I have to walk it." The following week, she received an unexpected email. A small gallery owner had seen her work at the art fair. He wanted to host a solo exhibition featuring emerging local artists. He asked if she would be interested. Maya stared at the screen in disbelief. A solo exhibition? Her heart raced with excitement and fear. What if I'm not ready? But then she remembered the woman in the rain, the one she had painted months ago, the one looking at the sunlight through dark clouds. She replied with a simple, "Yes, I'm interested." Preparation for the exhibition consumed her days. She painted with intensity she had never known before. Her themes became clearer: freedom, identity, quiet resilience. Each canvas felt like a chapter of her life. One painting showed a bird breaking out of a cage made of gold. Another showed a woman removing a smiling mask, revealing a tired but honest face beneath. As the exhibition date approached, anxiety tightened its grip on her. "What if no one comes?" she asked Sarah over coffee. "Then I'll be there," Sarah said firmly, "and that's enough to start." Opening night arrived. The gallery lights were warm and soft. Her name was printed on a small banner near the entrance: Maya Raman, Fragments of Becoming. Seeing her name displayed publicly made her knees weak. People began to arrive: strangers, couples, students, an elderly man with thoughtful eyes who stood in front of her paintings for a long time. Maya stayed near the corner at first, afraid to approach anyone. But slowly, conversation started. "I feel like this painting understands me," a young woman said, pointing to the one with the broken mask. "That one saved me from quitting my job last year," another visitor shared about the Crossroads painting, which Maya had posted online earlier. Maya listened, overwhelmed. Her art wasn't just hers anymore. It belonged to the emotions of others. In the middle of the evening, she noticed someone familiar at the door: Daniel. Their eyes met across the room. For a moment, the noise faded. He walked toward her slowly. "You look different," he said. "I am," she replied softly. He glanced around at the paintings. "You did all this?" "Yes." He nodded, studying the artwork carefully. There was no anger in his expression, just something like understanding. "I never realized how important this was to you," he admitted. "I didn't realize it either, not fully." They stood in silence for a moment. "I hope you're happy," he said finally. Maya thought carefully before answering. "I'm learning, and that feels right." Daniel gave a small smile. "I'm glad you chose what you needed." When he left, Maya felt something unexpected: peace. Not regret, not longing, just closure. By the end of the night, she had sold more than half of her collection. The gallery owner was impressed. There was talk of another exhibition in the future. But what stayed with Maya wasn't the sales. It was a little girl who had come with her mother. The girl stood in front of the painting of the bird escaping the golden cage. "Mom," she said softly, "why would the bird leave if the cage is made of gold?" Her mother smiled. "Maybe because gold still isn't freedom." Maya felt tears gather in her eyes. That was it. That was the answer she had been searching for. A golden cage is still a cage. Weeks later, as she sat by her window watching the sunrise, Maya reflected on everything she had lost and everything she had gained. She had lost security. She had lost a relationship that looked perfect on paper. She had lost the approval of some relatives who whispered that she had thrown her life away. But she had gained herself. Happiness, she realized, wasn't constant joy. It wasn't the absence of fear or sadness. It was alignment between who you are and how you live. Some days were still hard. Bills still needed to be paid. Doubts still appeared occasionally. But when she painted, she felt whole. One afternoon, she began a new canvas. This time, it wasn't a woman in the rain or at a crossroads. It was a woman standing confidently in an open field, sunlight surrounding her. No cage, no storm, no mask. Just space. Just sky. Just possibility. At the bottom corner, Maya wrote a small sentence in delicate script. I just want to be happy. But this time, it wasn't a wish. It was a declaration. A year later, Maya no longer counted her life in losses. She counted it in moments. The morning she received her first international order. The afternoon, a university invited her to speak to art students. The quiet evenings when she painted, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. Her second exhibition had been even more successful than the first. Critics had begun describing her work as emotionally intimate and quietly rebellious. The words felt strange at first. She had never thought of herself as rebellious. But maybe choosing yourself in a world that expects obedience is a quiet kind of rebellion. Still, growth came with new challenges. With recognition came pressure. What's your next theme? Journalists asked. How do you plan to evolve your style? Gallery owners questioned. For the first time since reclaiming her art, Maya felt something familiar creeping back: expectation. One evening, she sat in front of a blank canvas for hours. Nothing came. Her mind felt crowded with outside voices. Be better. Be deeper. Be more original. Don't disappoint. She dropped her brush in frustration. Why does happiness always feel so fragile? She muttered. The next morning, instead of forcing herself to paint, Maya did something she hadn't done in years. She took a train out of the city. No laptop, no sketchbook, no social media, just herself. The countryside greeted her with open skies and wide fields. She walked without direction, breathing in fresh air that smelled of grass and earth. Children were playing near a pond, laughing freely. An elderly couple sat on a wooden bench, sharing tea from a thermos. A farmer wiped sweat from his forehead, but smiled as he looked at his crops. No one seemed to be chasing anything. They were just living. Maya sat beneath a large tree and closed her eyes. For so long, she had associated happiness with achievement. First, it was the perfect career, then the perfect relationship, then the perfect art exhibition. Even after choosing her passion, she had unconsciously replaced one form of pressure with another. She realized something gently but clearly. Happiness isn't something you reach, it's something you practice. It's in the small decisions, in the way you speak to yourself, in the courage to rest. When she returned home that evening, she didn't go to her easel immediately. Instead, she cooked her favorite simple meal, played soft music, and allowed herself to exist without productivity. The next morning, she faced the blank canvas again. This time, she didn't try to create something impressive. She painted something honest. The image that emerged surprised her. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't symbolic. It was simple. A woman sitting quietly by a window, sunlight touching her face, a cup of tea in her hand. No tears, no storm, no escape. Just stillness. When she finished, she stepped back and smiled. This, she realized, was growth. Not dramatic transformation, not constant victory, but peace with imperfection. Months later, Maya opened a small art studio of her own. It wasn't large, but it was welcoming. She offered weekend workshops for beginners, especially those who had once abandoned their creativity like she had. One evening, a young man stayed behind after class. "I wanted to be a writer," he confessed quietly, "but my family said it wasn't practical." Maya felt a familiar ache of recognition.
"What do you want now?" she asked. He hesitated. "I just want to be happy." Maya smiled softly. "Then start with one honest step," she said. "Not the safest step, the honest one." After he left, she stood alone in the studio. looking at the colorful paintings created by her students. None of them were perfect, but they were real, and so was she. That night, she wrote in her journal, "I used to think happiness meant having everything figured out. Now I know it means accepting that I don't, and choosing myself anyway." Years later, when people asked Maya about her journey, she never said it was easy. She spoke about fear, about doubt, about loneliness, about financial struggle, but she also spoke about freedom, about waking up without dread, about creating without apology, about loving herself without conditions. On her 35th birthday, she stood once again in front of a mirror. The woman looking back at her was older, softer around the eyes, stronger in ways no one could see. "Are you happy?" she asked her reflection. The answer wasn't loud. It wasn't fireworks or applause. It was quiet. Yes. Not because her life was perfect, not because she had achieved every dream, but because she was living truthfully. And sometimes that is more than enough. Maya turned off the lights in her studio and stepped outside. The sky was painted in shades of orange and purple, as if the world itself were a canvas. She took a deep breath and walked forward, not chasing happiness anymore, simply living it.